And again, if you're not Buddhist or not identifying as a practitioner, you're just setting your motivation as we do this. Sangye churan sogi chunam lai jancho badu dani kapsu chia dagi chenyengi pexonam kia drola penchi sangye drupashu Sangye churan sogi chunam lai jancho badu dani kapsu chia dagi chenyengi pexonam kia Rola penchia sangye drupa sho sangye churam sogi chunam la jancho badu dani kapsu chi dagi chenyengi pexonam ki rola penchia sangye drupa sho. Okay, so we had a group exam, and can someone give me an example of someone who is a practitioner of Buddhism but not a Buddhist? And you just write me. No. How would you describe someone like that? Yeah, someone who is a practitioner but not identified as a Buddhist.
He didn't take refuge.
Didn't take refuge? Yeah.
But he practices. He goes to lectures.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he's part of the sangha.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's not there yet.
Tall.
Who is that?
Who is that?
Hasn't written yet.
No.
Who is that?
And is it okay to be a person like that forever if you want?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, good. Okay. Just making sure, right? Tall. And if you are a Buddhist, you say to yourself, we are not missionaries, we are not missionaries, we do not proselytize, we do not proselytize. Different paths work for different personalities. My path is not the only path. Okay, right? Okay.
Someone that Tal knows,
Mm.
and that's the owner of the grocery store.
Ah,
Where we are both buying our stuff.
yeah, you're outing him, yep.
His name is Uri. I will not disclose his family name. I'm serious.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm dead serious. And if he would see someone who is having difficulties with money, I mean, he knows who is needy.
Mm.
He can identify people who are needy.
Yep.
He can tell you, oh, this old lady from down there, I haven't seen her for quite some time. Maybe I should go there with a box of...
Yeah,
Wow.
beautiful,
And
yeah.
he's doing those things.
Yep.
But he will not tell you that he is doing those
Yep.
things.
Secret
I
bodhisattva.
caught him.
You caught him being a good person,
I
yeah.
caught him. I told him, Oi, where are you going with this?
Yeah,
Then he would tell me the story.
yeah. And a Christian would say, oh, a good Samaritan, right? Right?
It's just plain good. That's
Yeah,
all.
right? Oh, you, all right. Same story, Old Testament,
And
yeah.
he's observant.
Yeah,
He's looking for that.
yep.
It's
Bodhisattva.
not just, it just doesn't happen on
Yeah.
its own. It's in his mind and he's watching very carefully.
Exactly. Exactly. So we can't know what is the right path for people, right? So the question becomes, is this path right for me? And if it is, what will it look like? What will I do? What will change? What will stay the same? And always you keep in your mind, this is not for everyone. Of course, I do think everyone could use some sort of spiritual path or some sort of worldview that is altruistic. I do think that. I'm going to own it. I think altruism helps. But the style of altruism is personal, isn't it? So again, you just keep checking with yourself, where does it marry up with your own experience? And so then who's someone who is a Buddhist, says, I am a Buddhist, but is not a practitioner? What would someone like that be?
He was born.
Born Buddhist, yep. Yeah, what else? Yeah, blind faith, exactly. Yeah, blind faith. So you say I am, but not really know what that means, not really do anything with it. But still, there might be some nice conviction, there might be some basic ethics, and still be quite a good person and get some good work done, but not really practicing. Yeah. How, yeah.
May I ask, why do you ask these two questions?
I ask these two questions because I want it to be very, very clear that you can use Buddhism without being a Buddhist. I want it to be very, very clear that I don't want to convert anyone, or that right? It's good. It's good. No, and I like these questions. Mary's my favorite. No, but it's.
I mean to say that I like these two questions in the sense that you're trying to say, I think so, that you're trying to say something very serious, very deep. You're trying to say you may gain something from Buddhism. Check for yourself. You may gain without taking the whole schmear, the whole thing. No, I'm serious.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, absolutely.
I believe that you're trying to say something very serious, and I appreciate it. Because it seems that these two questions are stupid. I mean, in the sense of asking them.
Yeah.
So, okay.
It's to make us think, isn't it? To make us think, right?
I mean, especially for Jewish people.
Yeah.
I mean, because for Jewish people, you either take the whole thing or you're not a Jew.
Yeah.
In
Religious.
Israel, but
Yeah.
in some places it's different. In Israel it's like that.
The Sephardic Jews are not like this.
But in the diaspora, you
Yeah.
can fast in Yom Kippur, but draw
Well, and there's, we see in every single religion that there is great harm that comes from fundamentalist thinking, right? There is huge harm that comes when people start to think their religion is the only way, or that they are the best because they hold some particular view, and that even if that view itself is fine, even if the view itself is fine, even if the religion is fine, thinking that it's the only way causes huge amounts of harm, right? We see this everywhere in the world. So, fanatics, right? And there could be a Buddhist fanatic, but it would we would say now you don't fulfill the definition of being a Buddhist, right? And, in a lot of the Bodhisattva vows, there are vows about not criticizing other religions, right? Vows, promises, I will not criticize other religions. And, I will not criticize even other forms of Buddhism that are not my style, right? I might criticize a flaw in logic in a conversational way as a way of exploring ideas. But I'm not going to say you are a bad person for your belief system, or I shut you out because of your belief system, or that belief system is nonsense. If there's,
But you say I'm wrong. You're wrong.
If you see that there is something wrong in their thinking, you want to explore it because you might be the one that's wrong.
Are you open to this possibility?
I try, right, on a good day. Right? And, really the core ethics of behavior, most religions agree on, right? The philosophy about why to practice them and how and blah, blah, that is a longer story, but the general ethics are in common, and so that is enough for us to have harmony, right? That's enough for us to have world harmony, to say stealing doesn't help, right? Yeah, don't take stuff if it's not yours. That's a good general ethical system that most religions believe in. So the rest is details, right? And the rest is personal, and that's in a way none of our business. And I think that there's a lot of, it's a way of showing other people respect, isn't it? To think just because it's not my view doesn't mean it's wrong, right? There are many correct ways, right? Many roads up the mountain. So there is power in choosing a path, but you're trying to choose a path while seeing there are parallel paths that also get there, right? So there is power in finally committing to one, but you're not thinking this is the only one. And there is also a lack of power if you stay at the base camp of the mountain and you say, oh, look this path, oh, look this path, oh, this path, and you check at all of the paths again and again, but never pick one of them. You might lose power. There might not be so much happening for you. Maybe. but maybe base camp is your place of learning, and so that's good too, right? So we can't really know. We have to kind of have this broad mind that asks, what keeps me stuck in negative habits? What supports me getting out of them? What supports my ability to be of greatest benefit to this world? What blocks it? If this path helps that, okay, I commit to it. Yeah, so it's a question to make you think, right? And your own conclusions are your own, and they need to be. And even, Ling Rinpoche, who was here a month ago or so, very traditional, very, very Tibetan, very, 7th Ling Rinpoche, right? He even said point blank to me in English, we are not missionaries. Right? So this is not like a Yonten modernness or something. This is built into Buddhism, right? This isn't me. That's built in. Think, oh, she's young, she's modern, she's open-minded. No, this is Buddhism, right? Yeah, and people that profess otherwise perhaps have an incomplete understanding. Yeah. So there shouldn't be a fundamentalist Buddhism coming out of this course, okay? No fundamentalists, okay? So then what's an example of both? Someone who is both a Buddhist and a Buddhist practitioner. That's a very good example. Yeah. So what criteria do they have? Like what belief system has to be in there?
Took refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha.
Exactly. Yep, exactly.
Practice.
And they make a practice. Yep, yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Okay, you've got it.
And what's wrong,
Huh.
what's wrong if I have only two, let's say? I don't have the Buddha, I have the Dharma and the Sangha.
Ah,
Which means
interesting.
that I'm trying to live my way in an ethical way
Yep,
and try to keep the vows,
Yep.
And I understand that Buddha is the one who gave all this teaching, and I accept the teaching. But I have the Dharma and the Sangha and not the Buddha itself as a representation, let's say. Because for me, the Buddha and the Buddhism is like Jesus and the
interesting.
Christianity,
Yeah,
and like Muhammad and Islam.
yeah,
So
I see
say,
what you
why
mean.
should I need it if anyway I accept everything else?
It's
Fully accept.
yeah. No, it's a good question. And first, the Buddha didn't make Buddhism. He revealed it. Right, it was truth that was there before he met it, and there were Buddhas before him and Buddhas after him, and we will become Buddhas. So in taking refuge in the Buddha, you're as much taking refuge in some external teacher as you are in your own inner potential, right? Your own potential to change is what you're really taking refuge in, right? And the real refuge is the Dharma. That's the main refuge. So, if you have refuge in the Dharma, in the path, really it's refuge in the path that you've integrated. That's what's going to protect you and the people that help you. I think it's a perfectly valid way of approaching Buddhism. But to unpack where is the resistance to the Buddha, because we're not seeing him as a savior, we're not seeing him as God. He's neither of those things, right? He's nothing like God, nothing like a savior. If he could save us from suffering, he would have already. He's a nice guy, right? If he's God, he was the creator, and we don't believe in a creator God. We believe we made this world. That's why it's a mess. Yeah, we made it, right? Sorry, everyone, right? And why it's beautiful too. Right? So, the triggers of our previous conditioning for sure come up. And if they just are too hardwired to not be triggers, you can put it to one side and say, okay, Dharma and Sangha all the way. But to remember that when we talk about the Buddha, we're talking about something that represents our potential and a person that revealed what was already there and explained to us ways we can access it, ways we can access that truth, ways we can build on that truth. So, I don't know, does that clarify, help? Do you want to ask a follow-up question?
No, it clarifies it and not necessarily accept it.
Yeah.
I have to take it as something so necessary, let's say.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be necessary. Yeah, I mean, the analogy.
I won't be called a Buddhist if I'm not. For what,
Yeah, it's worth experimenting more about where is the resistance coming from. What worries you? What worries you if you take refuge in the Buddha?
just logically the unnecessity of the personality or the representation.
Yeah. that you don't
Not
need.
something that because of also the other religions and so on.
Yeah,
But
that you don't need a teacher to access teachings. You don't need a doctor to access medicine.
Where is that Buddha?
Which Buddha?
The one that you take refuge in? Is it outside, inside?
Well, there's a question to come, right? There's a relative and there's an ultimate. And yeah, stay tuned. Right? Like regular Buddha, the guy isn't
Because
ultimate refuge.
Muhammad
Yeah.
and Jesus are definitely outside.
Right, they're in the relative.
Yeah, they're peoples. Yeah. Yeah, and we have the Buddha people. So if Buddha the guy you don't want to take refuge in, it's okay. There's an ultimate Buddha that you might respond more to. So that's totally fine. Yeah, absolutely. So the historical figure, you know, if he's not your cup of tea or, you know, whatever.
I have an aversion against Buddha because
No, I'm with you. I'm with you.
sure,
Yeah.
because I've been born
Yeah.
I'm Jewish, and I was born into the creed that monotheism is the highest form of religion,
Mm-hmm.
and this is why even now when I see all those
All these guys.
guys in the Tanga, for me it doesn't. I wouldn't say it makes me upset, but the altar.
You don't relate.
No, it doesn't accord with my principles, so
Yeah, so you can leave it to
Yeah.
one
I
side.
take
Yeah.
everything else, but those.
Monotheism
Yeah.
is invention, by the way. I
Mm.
will not go into details, but it's an invention, and there is the researchers with archaeology. It started with Mount Karkon and with all the region around there. That basically it's a whole cult. It's a desert cult. In the beginning, it was not monotheism. It was a woman and a man, and it's a whole thing. So
Oh.
I know.
That's a whole other story, right?
Lecture, I'll get you
No,
one.
but
No,
the
I
forms,
know,
yeah,
I know,
yeah.
but I'm
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
the emotions
It's
is
Yeah.
very
my
invention.
aversion.
No, and it's important
This
to
is why
ask.
I won't take refuge.
Yeah. No, and really don't ever push through resistance in a sort of I want to belong because I love community, so I'm just going to ignore my uncomfortable feeling about this part, because at some point that will rebel within you and cause obstacles, right? So it's a good approach that you're saying. I'm not going to become Buddhist because this part is not resonating. That's very skillful. That's wise. Yeah.
And I believe that religion caused so many suffering to the world.
Absolutely.
But I accept, as you said, the morals, the ethics, the philosophy.
Yeah, and that's,
Fine.
you know, and that's where we have, you know, universal agreement is the ethics, and that's really the important thing, hey. And, you know, the thing about all of this here, you know, this is Guru Rinpoche, right, the person that brought Buddhism from India to Tibet. If he's in his fancy form, right, his Supreme Nirmanakaya form, he's Medicine Buddha, right, what we're really talking about is an aspect of the enlightened mind that we want to bring out, which means it's an aspect of the enlightened mind we're trying to talk to see if it can get in there. You know, it's this back and forth collaboration. The Buddha outside with the Buddha inside, with the Buddha outside with the Buddha inside. This collaboration is what makes you into the Buddha, right? And so when we see these things, you know, there's so many layers. There's always these layers, right? There's the historical layer, there's the folk story layer, and then there's the profound layer. So, you know, at whatever level it feels comfortable to relate to these images, you know, go for it. But if the whole concept of iconography or the whole concept of external forms causes too much resistance, just put it to one side and focus on the parts that do transform you, for sure. But remember, there's always these multiple layers, yeah? History, folk story, archetypes, right? And the ultimate, right? There's the inner and there's the outer, there's the about to be finished, there's the already finished, there's so many layers. It's never just as it seems. Just like the water bowls, right? Just like the water bowls, there's these layers and layers of meaning and layers of practice. So, yeah, just start where you are, right? Like Pema Chodron would say, start where you are. And so then what are the causes for going for spiritual refuge from the Buddhist perspective? What makes you want a Buddhist refuge?
Avoid negative emotions.
Yeah, avoid negative emotions, right? Yeah. Yeah, fear and faith, right? Which sounds so religious, don't they? Fear and faith. It's so hardcore, right? It's like Sunday school. But, you know, it is. It's fear of what your negative emotions will create, right? It's a healthy fear of, if I don't organize my mind, if I don't take control of my mind, I will continue to create chaos and harm for myself and for others, right? That is a healthy fear, yes? Left to your own devices, mistakes get made, yeah? To be a better person, but yeah, what that means, you know, to be a happier person, to be a kinder person, right? A more effective person. You know, it's not about being a good girl or a good boy. It's you know, it's not so simple and sweet as that. It's about like increasing your effectiveness. You know, what you are already good at, the lessons that you have already learned, how do you bring them forth into the world more consistently with more strength? Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So then the conviction is in these tools help me get that, right? It's faith that this system helps me organize this mind for this kind of effectiveness. So it's, yeah, healthy faith based in reason, right? Do you have questions about that? The two causes for refuge, they make sense to you? Did you have like qualms? Yeah.
It seems that there are more, but I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. This is the main two. Yeah, right. Also boredom. Also, no, I'm kidding. Right. Yeah, let's have a spiritual path. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Good sweets.
Yeah. And so, what does a Buddhist take refuge in? Very nice. And then, what is the analogy for those three? Yeah, I give you a hint, right? Yes. And then for bonus points, yeah, who are you, right? How do you see yourself in regard to these? Yes, you're the patient.
But we also the nurses, no? Because
Ish.
the Sangha.
Exactly. Yeah, ish. Yeah.
No, the Sangha is
Ish. The Sangha is the community in a sort of a general sense, but specifically monks and nuns. But yeah, no, not someday. Yeah, give me time. I don't know. We'll see. It's a work in progress, right? So the number 7, this is the important one, really. This is the main one that I really want us to understand, which is what are the relative and the ultimate aspects of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So if we take the Buddha, the relative Buddha, we talked about Shakyamuni Buddha, the historical Buddha, right? Golden, Buddha. What is the ultimate?
Our Buddha nature?
Our Buddha nature is one aspect. Yeah, that's one aspect. There was a fancy word. Do you remember the fancy word? Dharmakaya.
What is exactly Dharmakaya?
Indeed, right? The Dharmakaya is an interesting concept, right? It's a really interesting concept, and we should have a whole class about it because it's fun to talk about. But if we talk in general, it's the emptiness of the Buddha's mind, which means it's the potential of the mind for perfection. If the mind inherently existed, it couldn't change, it couldn't transform. So it's the very fact that it lacks inherent existence means that you can develop it. So there's the emptiness of the Buddha's minds, and imagine everyone who has ever become enlightened starts to collaborate, or starts to know one another, or starts to sort of become as if one. So you can think of it like the ocean, right? Think of the Dharmakaya like the ocean, and the waves come, and the waves do have shape, right? Waves have shape, but you know they are the same thing as the ocean. So from our perspective, the Dharmakaya then takes shape as Tara, or takes shape as Dexter the dog, or takes shape as a wind or a bridge or whatever is going to trigger your mind to develop. So the mind of all of the Buddhas is always trying to find ways for you to wake up. Yeah. And so a nice way of thinking of life is to think that you are the last sentient being left and everyone else is the Buddha. trying to manifest to teach you, right? You think you're the last one left, everyone's waiting, like, come on, get enlightened. Come on, Yonten, you can do it. You can do it. All right, let's see. Let's put Nisim here, see what he brings out of you. Let's put Shuki here, see what he brings out of you. Let's put Noah here, see what she brings out of you. And slowly, you'll get your act together, right? If the Dharmakaya takes all these different forms, slowly you'll wake up. Let's try making it too hot. Let's try making it too cold. Let's see what we can do to get you to wake up. It's a nice way of approaching the world. But, after a point, you're going to get annoyed and have an argument with someone and forget. So if you think about the Dharmakaya as the Buddhas want you to wake up, listen for it. Listen for how they're trying to get you to wake up. The main way they're trying to get you to wake up is through the Dharma, right? Is to teach you how to help yourself. And so if there's any time for us to be in this headspace of remembering that the Dharmakaya is always going to manifest as Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya, the form bodies of the Buddha, if we're always listening for that, especially in class, it's much more likely it will touch us deeply. Yeah, and much more likely the information won't just be intellectual, it will go to the heart. And so you think of your big T teachers, right, the big chair teachers, as like the representative of the Buddha, and that especially when they're teaching, but always, that they're talking specifically to you. Yeah, they're talking to everyone, but imagine it's a personal teaching specific to you. You hear it differently. You respond to it differently if this is personal advice for you. And if you start listening for personal advice, you start hearing personal advice. Yeah, and you will ask everyone, what was that teaching about? And they will have a million different opinions, and everyone has gotten a different teaching at the end of that class. So engaging with the Dharmakaya is a really important piece, to not get lost in, okay, there was this historical figure. He was important and we're really grateful, but really what we're talking about is the enlightened quality that's everywhere, right? So the Dharmakaya, the ultimate Buddha, this is interesting. We'll talk about it more maybe sometime, but just have a play with it in your mind, see what you reckon. The ultimate and the relative Dharma. Remember, what's relative Dharma?
The books and what we do with the information, that process we do.
Yep, perfect. Yofi. What is the ultimate Dharma? Yeah, side question, yes.
When I repeat what you said, I want to make sure
Yeah.
I maybe understood. What you are saying is to try and adopt an attitude. That's what you suggest for us, to try to adopt an attitude of listening, of watching for a, I don't want to say the word voice because it seems a little bit mystic, but
Yeah.
not a voice, but to look at the world with attentiveness,
Yeah.
to
Yes.
try to absorb something. That's what you're saying?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And be open-minded
Yeah.
for it, no? Because when you're open-minded, it makes it easier.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, if you can't do it all the time, then at least in class, right? If you can't do it in class, at least class with His Holiness, right? If you can't do it in class with His Holiness, at least, first 5 minutes, you're trying to slowly build this ability so you can do it all the time. Listening for wisdom, listening for what will trigger wisdom. And also then slowly starting to act in a way that's to promote wisdom, right? Or bring wisdom out of other people. The friends that you're with where you lift together, and the friends you're with where you sink together, right? Some friends pull you down, some friends lift you up. So we don't worry so much about them, we worry about how we are an influence. Can we be the influence that brings them up? Yeah, let's be the influence that brings them up. And so even if they're one that pulls down, you're listening to them as a way of listening for wisdom, right? So they could be drunk and gossiping and still trigger wisdom in you if you're listening in the right way, right? Yeah, it's an interesting way of living the life. It's a good experiment. So then the Sangha. So I should clarify. So the ultimate dharma is true paths and true cessations, right? Meaning your own mental development. In particular, if you realize emptiness, right? That's the ultimate refuge, or the ultimate dharma refuge. And then the relative was, as you said, about the texts, etc. Okay. So Sangha. Okay. Relative Sangha. Relative everyday Sangha. Monks and nuns, and the community in general.
Practitioner and the ones that reach emptiness.
That's the ultimate, yep. So the ultimate are people that have realized emptiness directly. Whether they're monks or nuns or lay people, doesn't matter. If they've realized emptiness directly, they are Sangha, jewel.
What is Sangha? That
Well,
that
no,
one I
no.
don't understand.
Huh.
Why is it that me too, I don't understand why are the Ajahn Sangha?
Because they're no longer so much creating negative karma, they're not so much trapped in samsara, still a little bit, still some work to do, right? But once someone has realized emptiness directly, they live in a fundamentally different way than we do. So relying on them is more reliable, right, than relying on kind of ordinary people with ordinary problems. Yeah, the reliance you put is more effective.
Seeing the ultimate reality.
Exactly, yeah.
And we are blind to ultimate reality.
Exactly. There's a random side note that if there are 4 ordained people in a clump, they have the same kind of merit as one person that has realized emptiness directly. So 4 like regular ones, right, kind of equals 1 super one.
Fully ordained?
Some people say fully ordained, some people say just ordained, depends on the teacher you ask.
That's theoretical conversation, no?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm listening to the words, it doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying here. It's nice.
It's nice.
Fully ordained, experience emptiness, I know what you're talking about.
Well, and
It's
emptiness
nice,
is
I mean,
coming.
it's beautiful words, but
Well, okay, the most important of the beautiful words is people who have realized emptiness are important to rely on, more than regular people who buy into the illusion, right? It's more useful to rely on people who have wisdom than people that don't, yes?
I haven't met them and I don't think I'm going to.
Who knows if you've met them? It's hard to say.
Oh,
Yeah, hard to say. But the relative Sangha is good enough. That the community supports you, that's enough. Yeah, that's enough. So the rest we can keep talking about. It's not a finished conversation, is it? It's a starting conversation. So then, let's see, we have, then what is the wrong refuge, right? Do you remember the 8 worldly concerns? Yes? So well. So tell me some of the refuges that are less effective. Being attached to and having aversion towards, yes. Pleasure and pain, yep, more? Gain and loss. Win and lose.
Reputation.
Yep. Perfect. Yay! You have the wrong refuges down perfectly.
That we all remember because that's the way we live. So
Yeah, exactly.
But you did now is one of the
Interestingly enough,
8
nobody.
Which one? Which one? Which one? All of them together, probably.
What did you do? Yeah, good.
No, it's if you are attached to it.
That's what you did, and I was pleased.
Oh.
And now
One
you are
thing
in
that
the
shows you that it's me.
We've got to start somewhere. We've got to start somewhere, right? Look, and it is true, right? It's despite knowing better, sometimes we have to function in this way, right? To continue the conversation. And it is, you have to have a sense of humor when you catch yourself in these. You have to. Otherwise, you'll start thinking that you are a lost cause and you'll never be able to change. You have to go, there I go again, needing that thing I don't actually need. There I go again, being scared of that thing that actually doesn't necessarily hurt me. There I go again. There I go again. Yeah, it does. It lifts, actually, your mood to catch yourself. Also, it makes you less judgmental, right? Right.
Also the motivation, no? It's why you did it. It's not the fact that you did it.
Yes, exactly. It's always why. Always motivation. Yeah, always motivation, always. So, yes, anyways, you guys have those down very well. Excellent. So how does it help to catch them and unhook from them? What happens? You don't even have other refuge, just not the wrong refuge. What happens?
Freedom.
Freedom from?
Of attachment.
Mm-hmm.
Real happiness.
Mhm.
Stable happiness.
Mm. Yep.
More balance.
More balance, yeah. Absolutely.
More space.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's not about ambition.
Yeah, exactly. The chance to choose, right? The chance to choose rather than just going along with habit. It's the chance to choose. It also saves money, right? It saves money not to be hooked by the 8 worldly concerns. Yeah. Saves time. Yeah. Saves unnecessary energy, mental energy. How much energy in a day is spent worrying about how we appear to others, right? So much energy. If we didn't have that energy going there, we could learn all sorts of things. We could learn quantum physics, we could learn neuroscience, we could learn Dharma, we could learn anything. We'd have so much space open up. You know, that's why we're so tired.
I'm sorry, really, I really beg your pardon, but it seems to me the unilateral agreement here makes me crazy.
We need more fighting, more fighting.
Okay, so you took all of this, what are you leaving for me? What is there for me to leave? You're taking from all these things.
I'm not taking
Then
that.
wake up in the morning.
Why?
Everybody knows the answer, only I don't know the answer. Thank you, I
Wow.
No,
you
it's
know the answer, only me left here, I'm the only idiot in this room. Maybe.
No, you have to fight with it or else you don't find wisdom. Yeah, you need to have doubt before you can have wisdom. Absolutely. Part of you has to say, okay, I sort of get what you're saying, but part of me says no. You have to find the no.
Part of me says you're taking all the things that I think, honestly.
Yes, I know.
I think I'm giving you pleasure.
I know.
You want to say, Mayor, give up.
No,
Okay,
I'm not.
What am I left with?
I'm-
What exactly?
You're left with Jenny.
I left with Jenny, you think?
With Jenny. That's good. Yeah. Perfect. Oh, look, I am not asking you to give up anything except attachment and aversion. The activities can remain. The activities will have more impact if you have less attachment and aversion. The food will be more delicious without attachment.
You have attachment to food.
Of course, but the degree to which I minimize it is the degree to which I'm happier with it, right? So, of course, I have all sorts of attachment and aversion, of course, a regular person. But every time I catch myself giving the object or the situation or the attitude the power, every time I catch it, I free myself from need and fear.
What do you say to yourself? Yonten, you
Yeah, what do I say?
why am I using these people? I'm trying to say very seriously.
You're speaking universal truths. We're laughing with you. Yeah.
I'm asking you, say to yourself,
Yeah.
Yonten, this chocolate is not so important. I mean, you enjoy eating it, but you can give it up. That's what you say.
It's something like that, yeah. A slightly different
I'm
accent.
trying to learn.
No, it is. And honestly, it doesn't have to be complicated, right? It doesn't have to be complicated for it to work. Right?
in Hebrew.
You can talk afterwards, help him afterwards, but no, you're coming down to the point because I think we all intellectually understand the general idea, but we are still hooked despite knowing better, right? So what you first have to do is catch yourself in the lie that says, if I don't have this, I can't be happy. You start by having some analytical meditation or some reflection that reminds you that that is an exaggeration.
You mean when you sit to dinner,
Yeah.
you look at the food. I'm serious.
Yeah.
When you're watching yourself in front of the food, and you say, I'm hungry, I would like to eat it. I hope it is tasty. But it's alright if it's a little bit too salty or not. Nothing happened, no damage. I'm not crazy about it, I can do it now. No, I'm serious.
Yeah. It's
that's
important.
what
Yeah, it's
this
important.
kind of, not indifference, but
Yeah.
a kind of nothing catastrophic will happen if I will not
Yeah.
get to the exhibition, or the food will not be tested,
Yes.
or
Yeah.
he will be
Yes.
late, or that's what you mean?
This is work that I do before the meal.
Okay.
And before I get to the meal, then when I get to the meal, I'm less likely to be hooked by the old pattern.
But this is the attitude that you are trying to develop?
It's a bit like that. It's a bit like that.
Can you correct me, please? Make fine-tuning?
Yeah, like,
What is the inner conversation,
Yeah.
if I may ask you, if it's not to
Yeah.
intimate?
absolutely. No,
What
I mean,
is the inner conversation that you speak to yourself? You say Yonten.
Yonten. I usually, with two hands internally, Yonten. No, I usually say, what? That's usually the first word. What? When I see myself getting hooked, right? Because the first thing is to be able to identify within yourself the difference between when your mind is stable and reasonable and when your mind is afflicted and agitated. The first thing is to be able to notice that you have two different ways of living in this world, right? We have two different ways, and we go back and forth between being reasonable and being unreasonable. Now, what we're doing with the Dharma is trying to educate the reasonable part to be even more reasonable, to even be more aligned with reality, so that when we're unreasonable, it has less power, right? And so, if I think about what are things I'm very attached to, I don't know, I do love cake. I am a fan of cake, right? And I do still think that cake is happiness in the cake. That if I put the cake in, the happiness goes in, right? It's a direct cause and effect. Part of me still believes that, despite knowing that if the happiness were in the cake, it wouldn't matter how much I ate. It would continually give me happiness. And that's not true. If I ate the whole cake, I would be sick. If I ate that cake every day, I would get sick of it, right?
Yes.
So what you're doing is you're noticing the belief system, and now you're challenging it with wisdom. To say, all right, you say this, but actually there are many, many cases where that has not been true. And by reminding yourself of those, then the next time you meet the cake, it's not such a big deal. And if the cake is some other kind of cake, there is room to love it as well. But if you decided in your mind, I can only be happy with this specific set of circumstances, that becomes true. So instead of saying, I'm making you give up everything, what I'm saying is really, we're freeing ourselves up so that anything can make you happy. Not just these few things we're used to as being the causes of happiness. It expands it so more and more things can be the condition for happiness.
You do it for every phenomenon, going to cinema or meeting friends or coming on time to the place.
It's a project, right? It's an inner project that I'm always working on. And some days I'm better at it than others. But the days that I'm better at it, I notice are happier and more effective days, and that reinforces the wish to keep doing that.
I understand that
Yeah.
it makes you feel freer.
Yeah.
For example, I like it. I'm trying to be more specific. This attitude you're doing toward every minute of your life.
Try.
So,
Yeah.
of course try.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be at 3:30 at Meditation Factory. I'm trying to do everything that I get.
Yeah.
If not, be late, okay,
Yeah.
tatam,
Yeah.
and you do it for everything to give it certain,
Yeah.
you do this,
Absolutely.
that's what you're trying
Absolutely.
to live your life.
Absolutely. And if you were to ask people that knew me 20 years ago, they would say, Yonten is the same as she has always been, except she is happier and nicer. Right? She is more happy and more nice with less. Yeah? I used to have a house and a partner and a cat and a veggie garden and a career, right? I had all of these things, right? But I was less happy then than I am now with less. I have 2 pairs of clothes, right? That is enough clothes because I have one to wash and one to wear. Success, right? Now, of course, I still have the preference to have 2, right? If I only had the one set of clothes, that would be inconvenient. On a washing day, I would have to just wander around the house in a towel until my clothes dried. It would be inconvenient, but still, I'm trying to get to the point where even that would not disturb my peace. But there was a time when a new piece of clothing took up a lot of space in my head. There was a time.
Of course.
No longer does that particular one come up anymore. It used to be thinking about what to do with my hair took some thought, right? Now it's like, oh yeah, I got a week left. 2 weeks, 2 weeks, yeah. You know, and that to me is a type of freedom that I don't need as much to be even more happy. I'm more happy in relation to less things, less stuff, less, it's freeing, it's happy making. And that I can feel at home anywhere in the world. You know, I do love where I was brought up. I do love my homeland. I do love my family and the patterns of life of my childhood, but I don't need them to be happy. And I haven't lived there for 15 years. It's fine. You know, I'm happier now than I was when I lived with all my comforts and familiarity. You know, it's freeing, it's liberating, and more becomes possible with this way of thinking. So it's not taking away anything, it's adding.
I understand.
Yeah,
I'm,
yeah.
I'm trying to understand how to translate what
Yeah.
you're saying for a minute to minute, second to second attitude.
It reinforces itself, right?
Yeah,
So
sure.
it started out as just what we're doing now, a class. You know, I had to go to this class at some point, right?
Maybe,
And right,
maybe in 15 years.
I think that it will
Something
happen
like
much
this.
quicker because you already have so much wisdom already. You know, I also had to develop the wisdom of life together with the wisdom of Dharma. You already have the wisdom of life. So you just add the Dharma, sprinkle, done. Right. So, you know, I think it will be shorter for a lot of you than how long it took me, but it's not like I'm done. You know, I'm not done. It's a process. But what you're trying to do is you go to a class and you think about it. Then you go to a class and you think about it. And then you go to a class and then you think about it. And then after you've done that quite a few times, you could say, I think I can meditate on it all by myself. I'm gonna. All right. And then you do that again and again. And then you go to a class and you think about it. And you go to a class and you read a book. And every time you bring the same ideas back to the forefront of your mind, they start to become your worldview. They start to become your worldview. I mean, it's the same process as, you know, if years ago you had a prejudice against certain kinds of people, right? Say maybe you didn't like rich people. I don't know, some random prejudice. And then you met a really nice rich person, right? And you realize, it's a nice person and rich. Aha, the correlation is not as I thought. You know, still you might have a prejudice towards rich people, but that one, not so much. And then maybe you met another and slowly you realized it wasn't the wealth, it was their approach to the wealth that made them badly behaved. Not all people have that approach to the wealth. And now maybe you meet the rich people and you don't have an opinion either way, you have space to check. You know, it's the same as other kinds of wisdom are developed through experience and thought. And it's not more magic than that, it's just repeating what you've already learned to yourself. And the more you repeat it, the more it becomes like natural. You know, so really it doesn't have to be complex at all. It's just repetitive wisdom. And you keep going over it until it's yours. And still it's a process. And it should be sort of fun. You know, fun to catch yourself thinking you need something you don't need. You know, I mean, even think about how you are when you go camping, right? If you love camping, right? Not if you don't love camping, but if you love camping, isn't it sort of liberating to be happy with like a change of clothes and like really basic food? And it's sort of like empowering. And then you think, but at home I have all these rooms and I have all these things and I actually am fine in the tent. Like it's liberating to realize you can be happy with less.
It's flexibility. It's a certain amount of flexibility that goes wider and wider.
Yeah, flexibility, exactly. So these are, you know, just ideas to play with because they help, you know, and you just see how you go with them. And we talked about the 5 lay vows and the benefits and things. Did anyone have questions about those, about the 5 lay vows before we finish up?
Just the last question.
Yeah.
What are some benefits?
Yeah, what are the benefits of having some of the 5 lay vows? No killing, no stealing, etc. Do you guys remember some benefits?
It's like a structure to keep
Yeah.
going.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. What else? Yep. Things like that. A structure to grow within.
Not hurting others.
Yep.
Having more good karma.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
For others.
Yep, you're creating more positive karma when you've made something intentional as opposed to passive. right? If you weren't killing things before, it was passive not killing. When you make the promise not to kill, it's active not killing, right? It creates more mental momentum, right? It's stronger when you've made a promise. What it takes to transgress as opposed to break from the root, were you pretty clear on those? Yeah, the difference between transgressing and breaking. Yes? Yeah? Good? Yes? Okay. Great. Right, well thanks guys. Nice. Let's do some dedications. Okay, page 36. 36. All right. So the final Lamrim prayer, together if you feel comfortable. 36. 36. And then there's a heading that says Final Lamrim Prayer. From my 2 collections, vast as space, that I've amassed from working with effort at this practice for a great length of time, may I become a chief leading Buddha for all those whose mind's wisdom eye is blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all my life's Manjushri. May I find the best of complete graded paths of the teachings, and may I please all the Buddhas by my practice. Using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings. With the points of the path as I have discerned them, may I uphold Buddha's teachings for a very long time. With my heart going out with great compassion in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread, or once spread have declined, may I reveal this treasure of happiness and aid. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted bounteous peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time. By even this graded path to enlightenment completed due to the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their sons, may all human and non-human beings who eliminate adversity and create conducive conditions for practicing the excellent paths never be parted in any of their lives from the purest path praised by the Buddhas. Whenever someone makes effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices, may they always be assisted by the mighty ones, and may oceans of prosperity spread everywhere. And so just thinking now, through the force of this mental activity, may we be a source of peace in this world and bring out peace in others. May the work we do have a ripple effect around us, benefiting all. And you can relax your attention.